In this demonstration, we'll be demonstrating how the C3DNA platform can be used to migrate a database without transaction loss in accordance to a policy setting. To demonstrate this capability, we'll be using a three-tier application with Apache, Tomcat, and MySQL. The Tomcat portion of the application will be used to write transactions to the MySQL database. You can actually select the number of transactions that you would like written to the database via a slider in the Tomcat application. The Apache application will just simply display the IP address of the Tomcat client and also the IP address of the MySQL database as it's writing the transactions. When we deploy this application, we'll deploy Apache and Tomcat in their respective servers on one of the clusters. Likewise, MySQL will also be deployed on a server in one of the clusters, in an internal cluster on the Cisco cloud. And we will apply or trigger a policy which will then migrate the MySQL database to an AWS instance in the AWS managed cluster. And what we would like to demonstrate is that the C3DNA platform can ensure that the application continues to write to the database even as the database is migrated and no transactions are lost in the process. Now let's go ahead and launch the application components of our three-tier application. Let's first go ahead and call up the Tomcat piece. So as you can see, this is the Tomcat piece, which if I drag the slider will allow me to write a number of transactions per minute. And let's call up the Apache piece, which is the just the renderer of the transactions being written. Here we have no transactions written yet. So let's go ahead and start by dragging the slider and say we're going to write about 20 transactions per minute. What this starts doing on the Apache side is you can see the Tomcat application IP address and the database to which it's writing and then the timestamp. So let's go back to the console. What we're going to do now is apply a policy. So we go to the policy catalog. I already have a policy here that says that if the number of total rows to the application database is greater than 20, then perform a migration. So we have a fairly comprehensive policy engine that can be allowed to define new policies. You can specify them as part of the blueprint, or you can define them through the GUI here. So now let's go and apply this policy. So to do this, we'll go to Manage Execution. And we're going to go and apply this to our MySQL service here. When I click on the little policy sliders, it shows me actions that I can take. Here it has recognized that migrate transaction DB, the policy that we had in the policy catalog, is applicable. I'll go ahead and tell it to migrate this to PL006, which is in the Amazon cluster when the number of rows hits greater than 20. So let's go and apply that. So that policy has been applied. Now let's go back to the console and see what happens. Basically, when the policy threshold is hit, we will see the migration. So you can see that happen in real time. Basically, the MySQL database was migrated because the threshold was hit. So I should be able to go to my database, and you can see that the transactions basically at 33 is greater than 20, so the policy triggered and the database writes switched. You can see that the transaction sequence was continuous. That means that no transactions were lost even as we migrated the database from the Cisco intercloud cluster over to the Amazon AWS cluster. Now that's pretty amazing.